We're back with another episode of The Lunchroom. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Sarah. A not live episode.
A not live episode, correct.
So, again, all of you are in the future. So I hope it's better a week from now
Yeah.
than it is right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Quickly. Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Lunsford. I take he, him pronouns. I am the artistic producer at the American Repertory Theater. I'm a white man with a brown beard and close-cropped brown hair and a black sweater and a gray jacket. I'm wearing a little white whale pin in honor of our guest today. And I'm coming to you from my living room in Somerville.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Schofield-Manser. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Events and Partnerships at the A.R.T. I take she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing a kind of cream-colored knit sweater and a gray shirt underneath. I've got headphones in. I'm sitting in the only corner of my living room from which you cannot see the chaos that is around me. I'm tomorrow, so the lighting is bad, which I feel is an important detail to note. And I'm very happy to be joining you 1 week in the future.
You look great. Your looks can't be bothered by lighting.
Wow. The compliments. Wow. I have it on camera, so.
Yeah, great. You also see my fancy little earpiece today. I work from home. Me and my roommate make the most of it. He's having a meeting across the way, so we'll all hang in there together. Sure, it'll be great.
The new normal.
That's the new normal, yes. So here we are in the lunchroom. We have a lot of very exciting conversation planned for today, revisiting some A.R.T history and sort of digging into the dance world, which I think is really exciting.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Guests are we're assuming you're piling in. Who knows?
We know
a week ago, but we know you're there with us and excited. So what do you think, Sarah? Do you think we can?
Yeah, I think it's my time to shine. And by that, I mean pop off camera and make room for our wonderful guest on this week. It's lovely to see you all as ever. And I will see you at our next episode of The Lunchroom. Bye, Mark. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, great. Bye, Sarah. Chanel DaSilva, can you come into the lunchroom and join me?
Hi, Mark.
Hey, there she is.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Can you why don't you introduce yourself for all our guests?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Chanel DaSilva. I take she, her pronouns. I am a Black woman with caramel colored skin, black hair that's pulled back in a semi-slick bun today, cream colored little fall turtleneck because it's all of a sudden cold. Who knew? And I have on my new favorite Africa earrings, black Africa continent earrings.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us, Chanel.
And Mark, you are one of my favorite people, so this was a no-brainer.
It's a very, very mutual feeling, let me say. So, there's so much to talk about, and I feel like I'm always coming back to this, like, how are you doing in COVID? But particularly when I'm speaking to a choreographer, it's an even more interesting question for me. And so I kind of thought we would jump in there. Like, what is this COVID moment for you as an artist, as a teacher, as a choreographer? Like, what does that adaptation look like?
Yeah, for each of those things, artist, teacher, choreographer, it's very different. When we first, when the world first shut down and we were all at home, I remember sitting on my couch, just kind of a puddle of Chanel, wondering what my life is going to be like moving forward. Because, as an artist, I have my calendar booked a year and a half in advance. And, as the months went on, things just started to get postponed indefinitely. And so I had to have a real conversation with myself and remind myself that regardless of whether or not I have access to a studio, access to a stage, that doesn't make me a non-artist anymore. I'm still an artist. I can still make my work. It just will look very different. And so I challenged myself to not be resistant to what is now available to me. I challenged myself to say yes to the possibility of creating work in a virtual world. I challenged myself to turn off the part of me that, leans into things that are communicated via osmosis as artists, and start to make myself articulate it through words, because so much of that is important, especially when I'm choreographing and especially when I'm teaching, to be able to convey my artistic thought through words, and, if I can't show it through my body. And as a dancer, I've just become more comfortable with dancing in unconventional spaces. I've taken ballet bar here attached to my kitchen island so many times now, I don't even realize that it's not the bar. I've gone out into the park and danced in the grass and created video films of myself in tribute to the women in my life, So I've just challenged myself to not be so resistant to change, to not be resistant to evolution, to not forget the past, right? Because there's so many things in the past that I want to hold on as pillars for my integrity as an artist and as a woman, but also leaning into the possibilities of the future.
I find this so inspiring, because I think this moment, that thing you mentioned, like being a puddle of Chanel, right? I think we all had that moment of like, okay, what? Like, what are we all doing? How do we make work? And what's become clear over these 6 months, right, is that like the need for the art didn't stop, and the ability to make the art didn't stop. Simply our ability to be together and experience it in person is on hold. Mm-hmm. But there's still like this need, this drive that didn't go away.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what I channeled all of the frustration and fear and anxiety that I have from being in this new place into my art. And so much like any other moment in history where there's a dramatic shift or a revolution, art responds to that. So I'm like, well, I should be responding to the time I live in right now. That's the art that's going to come out of this time. When someone looks back and sees the art that Chanel DaSilva was making in 2020, they'll probably go, you know what? That was the year of COVID.
So true. It's so true. Well, Chanel, part of why I was really excited to talk to you, because you and I don't have a long history, but a deep history quickly. I would say, right? We first got to work together on The Black Clown, which you so beautifully choreographed. And then very quickly after, we had taken Black Clown on the road. We were doing it at Lincoln Center as part of the Mostly Mozart Festival. And then you joined us. Yeah, right. And then you joined us as a choreographer for Moby-Dick. My little pin.
Yes, we are all in the bunch of the whale.
The white whale's not to scale on my jacket, but he's present. And so, it definitely, for me, it's been one of the most exciting new meetings and collaborations and relationships. And I'm really excited to kind of dig into that today for our guests. But I also want to kind of dig into your history, right? Born in New York, LaGuardia School for the Performing Arts, Juilliard, this sort of really, really deep art practice leading you to Trey McIntyre. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that history leading up to Trey, which I think probably post Juilliard was your first professional gig, yeah?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been dancing since I was 3. I was one of the lucky people that found my artistic calling very early, and my parents were like, the kid knows what she wants to do, so let's just let her dance. And I rode that dance wave all the way through LaGuardia High School, through the Juilliard School, and then my senior year of Juilliard, I ran into this 6'6" man who walked into a master class at Juilliard and said, "Hey, I'm Trey McIntyre. I'm going to teach you a class." And I fell in love with his movement vocabulary instantly. And I also fell in love with what he wanted to do with art. And one of the biggest and bravest things that he did was he started his company and based it in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
So that was huge. I was like, Idaho? New Yorkers are so funny. We don't know anything west of New Jersey. So well, you know what? I'm up for adventure. I'm up for trying new things. So this Brooklyn girl packed her bags and moved to Boise. Wow. And I was there for 6 years. 6 years, and we toured all over the world. We, traveled throughout Asia, Central America, South America, Europe, all over the States. And Trey McIntyre Project gained a huge following. And so that was such a beautiful time in my life. And that was my first professional job out of college. So much of my artistic practice as a professional was influenced by Trey and how he led his company with bravery and creativity, and really challenged how we access art. Actually, like, Trey's really innovative. The way we're accessing art now via video, quick little snapshots. Trey was doing that in 2008. He was already pushing the envelope in that way, in the ways that we're now like, COVID, we have to do it, and to bring me back to New York in 2014, Trey decided that Trey McIntyre Project as a dance company would no longer exist. He was ready to move on to other endeavors. He's an incredible artist. He's a photographer, videographer, choreographer. He's just an all-around incredible artist. So I moved back to New York City and started my life as a freelance dancer and choreographer. So that's when I started leaning into choreography.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Was it the time with the Trey McIntyre Project that started? Because, I know a lot of dancers who are deep in their dance performance practice, but maybe don't go on to be choreographers. It's not some foregone conclusion, right? And I wonder when the choreography bug sort of got you, if it was during that time or after.
A couple of things happened. I mean, I've always choreographed. I choreographed in college as a part of our composition classes and a little bit in Idaho. But when I got back to New York, choreography was a means for money at first, because I wasn't dancing all the time right away. So I was going to local studios and schools and creating work. But when it became this new, truly career for me, is, I'll never forget, in 2016, which was the 10-year anniversary of the year my mom passed away, I had to make a piece for LaGuardia High School. And I was doing that thing where I meditate on what kind of piece I want to make. It's high schoolers. We should be doing big dance, right? And I kept having this dream every night of the opening image of my piece. And it was the same image of a woman holding another woman in her arms, and the body was sort of lifeless, and there were spectators around it. And I was like, no, I cannot make that piece. That's too heavy. It's too provocative. It's, it's uncomfortable. And so I kept kind of shunning it. When I tell you, Mark, that dream happened every single night. I said, okay, Mom. Looking up.
I got it.
I will make the piece. And Mark, that was one of the most incredible pieces I've ever made in my career. And I named it Susan in memoriam to my mother. And so from there, I just started. And all of my pieces now are just literally an emotional outpouring of the things that I feel on the inside.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. So, you're back in NYC, you're choreographing, you're dancing, and it's about 2015, right, that we see your company Move NYC being born. And I definitely want you to talk a bit about sort of the vision, the sort of catalytic moment for Move NYC, but also it is such a sort of forward organization in being about art and social justice at the same time. And so also talk to us a little bit about kind of what inspired that or how that shows up in the process of Move NYC.
Yes, absolutely. So just to rewind the tape a little bit, in 2013, I went to visit my best friend, Nigel Campbell, who was then living in Gothenburg, Sweden. And I had come all the way from Idaho to see him. So I went to see him in class and rehearsal and stage performances. And then we went and had a burger and a beer and started unpacking our beloved dance community which we always do because we're dance nerds. And And, at that time, I was still a part of Trey McIntyre Project, and I was the only person of color in the company for pretty much the full span of 6 years that we existed as a company. And Nigel was the only person of color in a company of 40 people.
Wow.
And so this was we had real question marks here. We're like, how is it that, first of all, me, a girl from East New York, Brooklyn, and him, a kid from the Bronx, made it to this place where we're having burgers in Sweden? Like, that was such an anomaly for us that we were like, how come we're looking to our left, looking to our right, how come there aren't more people of color in these circles that we're now rolling in? So we decided to pull back the layers. Okay, to get into an elite institution, whether that's dance, theater, music, Broadway, you had to have gone to an elite, in quotes, institution before that, like a conservatory. So we pulled it back. Okay, well, in order to get into a school, let's say like the Juilliard School, you had to have gone to a training program where you were getting professional training. Okay, in order to get into a professional training program, you had to have access to that. And the biggest thing that usually locks people of color out of training is money.
Yes.
And, and I'm a prime example of that. When I was 15, I got into 2 consecutive summer programs because I was talented enough to be there, but I never got a scholarship. And I took the letter home to my mother and she said, I love you, Chanel. I cannot afford a $5,000 summer intensive and pay our mortgage and raise your little brother. So I'm like, I'm talented and I want to be a part of this industry. I should have access to that because we need more people who want to be a part of this community to be here, not just those who can afford to pay to be a part of it. So Nigel and I really dedicated ourselves and committed ourselves to changing what the top looks like, the homogenous top, by starting at the seed. So the initial seed of Move NYC was our Young Professionals program, which is now a full-fledged year-round mentorship and training program, where we offer mentorship, college preparatory training, leadership seminars, career management seminars to ready the young dancer for a career in the arts. And all of the things that we offer to them is absolutely free because we believe that the only determining factor as why you should be in the room is talent. So that's why we started it.
Yeah, I think that is a very clear point that is showing up across the cultural sector and performing arts sector, right? Everything you're saying about access to training, access to these institutions that sort of have formed the pipeline into these professional careers, being really controlled by money in such a big way. I feel like that translates out of dance world into all of our performing arts.
Absolutely. And for me, I'm not going to go into a whole philosophical discussion about this, but for me, money is a made up social construct. And so I don't understand why this is the thing that's been blocking us from having more people infused into the industry. I think about Misty Copeland, who told us that she started at the Boys and Girls Club, a free program. Right. She was in basketball shorts and socks. And someone said, you have a high potential for dance. Let me pluck you out of here at 14, give you a scholarship. And now she's Misty Copeland.
Right.
How many people could we have possibly missed because they didn't have the money to participate? How sad is that,
Right. I wonder too, in starting with NYC, what did you, Nigel, see in terms of the response from the funding community, right? Was there what was that hill to find? Because I feel like that, for a lot of folks who are starting companies and starting institutions, getting access into that philanthropic community and that funding community, it can be really daunting. Not just similar to how it can be to get into some of the training programs or educational communities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for us, at first, because we were new, it was really a grassroots effort. A lot of that early funding that we got was from our family, our friends, people who actually really understood that Nigel and I, when we say we're going to do something, we're going to do something. So they believed in us. And and every time we talked about Move, we tried to make it remind people that this could be anybody and this could be any medium. This could be education. This could be music. What did you benefit from by being able to have access to education, whether it was free or paid for? How has that propelled you forward? Now imagine if that wasn't afforded to you. What we are trying to do is afford those who don't have that access and opportunity with what they deserve. Education, I feel like, should be equal opportunity, especially if you want it. So every time we talked about it, we tried to put it in the lens of it is not us actually saving these young people. It's actually us saving us all. Because if they're going to be the leaders, we want them to look like the world we live in. So it's our duty to infuse the world with more young people who are ready, and who are reflective of the world we look like today, which is multi-ethnic, multicultural, multicolored. And so as the years went on, we got a lot of great response because people started to see literally what happens when you give young people access and opportunity. They rise. It happens. All you have to do is give them the opportunity and they will rise. And so after 3 or 4 years, we're starting to see results. We're starting to see our young professionals matriculate into some of the highest institutions in the nation, whereas maybe they would have still been just as talented, but maybe didn't have that extra sauce to get right in there and be able to move on in the career. So
Incredible. I'd love to get in a little bit more to your work artistically as a choreographer, which is how we know each other. And I think the first time I experienced your work was actually with the Harvard Dance Project with Jill Johnson. Right, that amazing piece that you did with the dance students at Harvard, which is so Marcus. And I remember,
provocative, Mark. That was a provocative piece. Jill Johnson, let's go for it. Thank you, Jill.
I mean, it certainly was, and it grabbed our attention in a really exciting way. And I remember Diane Borger and I left that performance thinking, like, we need to know this person. We need to work with her. And it just so happened we were going into this production of The Black Clown, and Zach Winokur was like, you know what, we should go to DaSilva. And we were like, yes! We couldn't agree more. And we'll get to know a little bit more later, but I have this clip that I'd like to share with folks. Mm-hmm. That's you talking, and then a bit inside the rehearsal room for a piece that you did with the students at the Joffrey Academy of Dance in Chicago as part of the Winning Works competition. And it's an enjoyable clip for me because I feel like both it's great to start to get a sense of your dance vocabulary, but also the way that I think you are talking about your practice as it relates to that piece, but also more generally is exciting. So I'm gonna share that with our group here. I'll become my own tech.
I know.
I think I got it. All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Nina Simone has a beautiful quote that says, "It is the duty of the artist to reflect the times." Really, I live by that. That has become my artistic mantra.
Borders is a piece that represents the boundaries and borders that we place on ourselves, on others. It sort of calls the audience to question how they separate themselves from others in the world.
Yes, geographical borders that separate countries, but also the psychological borders that we put up for ourselves or against other people or against lifestyles and ideas. Using the idea of being restricted. The first day I said, I'm going to teach you this phrase, but I want you to dance it as if the ceiling is really low and you're trying your best to expand it and push against it. I really want to see that physicality in your body. Working with Chanel has been incredible. She's so inspiring. She's brilliant.
She's very fierce, and I think she brings a lot of energy to the studio. We're working, she's working, we're both giving the same amount.
Wait, you have to say it very long. Here, Chanel has created this perfect balance between technique and humanity. I don't know how to explain it. It's so raw and vulnerable. You get so invested and captivated. My real hope with this piece is to not answer any questions, but really to have us just sit and experience and maybe leave us some questions of our own. What does it drum up for you? Dance is the best way I know to bring those questions to the forefront and have conversations about them.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting teary. One of the reasons I'm also teary is because right as the quarantine started, I was supposed to put this piece on stage.
Oh.
It was, 10 days after we got into lockdown, we were supposed to premiere this. So seeing this now is just a little bit. Yeah.
I had noticed the date, March 20th, and I was like, oh, God.
Yeah.
There's two great moments in this clip that really resonated for me. And first was you highlighting this CSMO quote, right? Which I feel like what a bedrock, what a foundation for an artist to use. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. And the other thing, well, let's start there. So talk to us a little bit about that CSMO quote and what that means for you in your work.
Yeah, I wasn't privy to that quote, I don't think until about 2 or 3 years ago. And it came to me at a time where I needed to hear it, because I think sometimes, well, I'll speak just for myself, I shy away from making work that has a message, because sometimes in the industry, it's kind of frowned upon to have a story, or it's like, oh, here's this other person making a political work, or, so I always kind of pulled back from that. And then this Nina Simone quote came to me, whether I forget where I saw it. It might have been on her documentary or on a quote somewhere, like on a meme, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, the duty of the artist, the duty, like it is my purpose to reflect the times that we live in. If not us, then who? And reading that just kind of stamped on my heart. And then I began making the pieces like public private, like I made on the Harvard Dance Project, which, I really went there, or, being a part of theatrical productions like The Black Clown, or making a work like Borders, where it could be a little bit uncomfortable to discuss these topics, but we need to discuss them anyway. That's the only way we'll find healing as a people, So that's why I said in the clip, I think the best way to begin the conversation is to sit and watch questions being unpacked on stage from someone who's living and breathing in the world today, and Borders for itself, just like, had so many things. Borders, what kind of borders do I have? Did I put them up myself, or was I socially conditioned to feel that way? Why do we have geographical borders? So I just allowed all those questions to resonate with me, and then I kind of just wrote it down on the journal that is the Marley in the dance studio.
Yeah. That was the other part for me, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a perfect segue, because you talk about not wanting to answer any questions, but more have the audience ask some questions when they leave.
Yeah,
right.
Because I don't have the answers.
Right. Well, and I think it's congruent with some of how you talked about, in particular, work on Moby-Dick, right? Like not trying to answer something for someone or really force a direct perspective, but to more say, here's the reflection, the truth, you use that word reflection. And so I feel like this shows up a lot in what you're doing artistically.
Yeah. And for me, I always make this joke that, not joke, but it's a reality. I don't feel called to write an essay on Facebook about the political climate that we're in, or the social climate that we're in. I don't feel called all the time to protest and march, but that doesn't mean that the questions aren't brewing inside of me. And some of them I don't have the answer to. Some of them I have solutions that I think might be interesting, which sometimes I put in my work. But again, I really do view my work as my personal journal. Like I put the questions and the ideas and the feelings onto the stage, so that the person viewing it can say, oh, that's interesting. I actually never saw it from that perspective. And if it drums up questions inside of you, that for me is success on my part. Not whether or not it was a masterpiece, not whether or not you liked it or not. If it causes you to ask yourself a question, if you leave the theater different than the way you came, for me, that is success.
Well, and even in that reflection, that question, it is not lacking artistic specificity, right? Like I feel like there's great specificity that shows up in a lot of your work,
yes,
even if it's not answering the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yes. I even listen now. You know how you go back and look at your work and you're like, wow, that's a thing, Chanel. You it's not heavy-handed, but you can tell I feel something. I like, oh, she feels a way about that, or she's curious about that, or, like I feel like parts of my personality and how I would address an issue shows up in my choreography. It's not aggressive, but it's bold enough where you can't miss it. And then, it's not heavy-handed. I'm not punching people in the face with an idea, but I am saying that I have an opinion. I have something to say. That's how I endeavor to make work that I'm going to share, so that people can say, oh, okay, I'm clear about what this artist was trying to portray here, but I don't feel assaulted. What's that balance? Because even when you're having really hard conversations through art, sometimes it's easier to swallow the pill if it's with honey. Like how do I pull you in, and once I have you in, You can't get away. And now I show you the thing, you know, we did that a lot in Black Clown. Pull you in, pow. You know, so it's like I'm on this roller coaster ride where I love what I'm watching, and at the same time I feel like I'm being forced to be accountable.
Yeah. I wonder in that, you know, as a choreographer, when you're approaching a dancer, I think I'll speak for myself. You know, before I really was in theater professionally, right, and was sort of a consumer in high school and whatever. I think of a choreographer and I think of something that is incredibly calculated and detailed, right? Like every move that dancer is making, they were told to make it, how to make it, at what level to make it. And of course that's not true. And it's kind of a silly assumption, right? Because certainly actors aren't treated that way by a director. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like your approach to the dancer who's also bringing in this sense of their body and what their body can achieve and how their body can interpret these questions you're asking or this reflection that you're offering.
Absolutely. You know, when I was a younger choreographer, because of my own insecurities, I came in with everything choreographed to the T. I was like, you'll do it just like this. Don't change anything. I've got it ready, you know. And I did that when I was younger because I didn't want to have that scary feeling of people thinking I didn't know what I was doing. So I felt like I needed to over prepare. Now I've let that go a little bit, where I come in with a dome of an idea of how I'd like this piece to shape out, but I don't do any of the building on the inside without my dancers. Like when I created Borders, I had the title of the piece. I had all 5 songs ready to go. I knew that somewhere in there I wanted a male duet, and somewhere over here I wanted an intricate 5-person partnering section, but everything else was not made. I made it all the first day with those dancers. And I think that is what makes the piece rich, because everyone in the room is contributing to this piece of art. Yes, I'm the choreographer and in some ways the director of this artistic offering, but the dancers have just as much contribution effort to this. You know, I might do a move one way and then look back at my dancers and they're doing what they thought they saw and it's completely different. And I'm like, you know what? Forget what I did. That's what I want. Thank you for having telepathic powers to know what my brain needed before I knew, you know? So I surrender to that. I'm still nervous. I'm still like, okay, we're going to make this together, and trusting the process. But I find that my work is just so much more rich when I come in with a skeleton and then I build the body of it, the muscles, the tissues with my dancers. So we build it together. I make up the steps because I still want it to be from my perspective, you know, and not have 80 perspectives. So it's confusing about what to say, but I'm not blocking the dancers from artistically contributing to the work.
Yeah, I mean, it also fits with this thing. I also talked to Sergio Trujillo about this, who we had on a few months ago. And I think I see similarities between your approach to choreography and his, and this sort of idea of really being a cultural interpreter, right? Like you talk about this a little bit in your work on Moby-Dick too. I feel like your work is not confined stylistically. Like there is a sort of deep library and repertoire of quoting different styles, different periods that really feed that. And I wonder if you can speak to us a little bit about like what kind of drives that, what inspires you about these sort of different cultural representations of dance and how that informs your work.
Yeah, I think back to my childhood, and when I was a young trainee, you know, anywhere from age 3 to 18, I took every type of genre of dance. You know, I started in ballet and modern and tap, but I also took West African. I took hip hop. I took tap. I took jazz. You know, I even took step. You know, like what else? When I was in college, I took classical Indian. You know, I've taken every type of Latin partnering dance because I love it, you know? So all of it is living and breathing inside of me at all times. And I tell my students all the time, all of your experiences and all of your cultural dance references should live right underneath your skin, because you never know when you're going to have to call on them instantly, right? So, you know, I made a piece like Borders for the Joffrey Academy of Dance, and I know that their central genre is ballet. So I said, okay, I'm going to meet my dancers where they are, but I'm also going to challenge them to adapt to what I'm trying to say. So I was asking them to move their bodies into different positions on the floor, taking on gestures that they haven't had to do before, using arrested qualities. And they had to adapt and grow into that. But at the same time, I met them where they are. I was like, okay, and also arabesque, and also battement développé, like all of that stuff. So we could make a piece together. Then on the other side of that, I do a piece like Moby-Dick, where Dave Malloy's musical offerings are everywhere,
Right.
I hear something like, Knights and Squires, which reminds me of like an old school doo-wop group. And so as soon as I hear the music, because those artistic genres, those dance genres live under my skin, I can respond instantly to what I hear. Within 5 seconds, I've dropped into the world of that music, like the first time I heard, Stub Kills a Whale, I was like, you know what? This sounds like swag surfing to me. So, and that's like, I was like, guys, we're going to swag surf here. I feel like as an artist, it behooves us to just know as much about everything that we can. And now me as a creative, being on the creative team, it has helped me tremendously to have such a wide anthology of dance genres that I can choose from and really quote with authenticity, because, it's one thing to be like, I took West African that one time, and then you try to make West African dance and it doesn't look authentic. I've grown up doing West African dance. I can drop right into it. If I hear djembe drums, I'm gone. I think it's made me a more well-rounded creative person. And as a choreographer, I think it lends me to be able to be malleable, to be able to do as many shows as I want, to not be in a box, which I love. The only box that I want to be in is making culturally relevant art. That's the only box I want to be in.
Yeah. I think that swag surf could have been a TikTok craze if the A.R.T staff would have had anything to say about it. The amount of swag surfing that was happening in the hallways of the Loeb December and January was pretty remarkable.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about our work together and your work at A.R.T. And I'd love to jump in on Black Clown. So I wonder if you can just sort of, I have a clip that I want to share with folks. Motherless Child from the Black Clown. I wonder if you can just set up the show for us a bit, and then we'll have a look at this, and then I'll probably ask you to kind of break down this scene, sort of the staging and movement of this scene.
Absolutely. Well, first, the Black Clown is monumental for me because of a few reasons. One, the Black Clown is my first theatrical choreographic opportunity ever. As Mark mentioned, he and Diane Borger became aware of my work when I made a piece for Harvard Dance Project in the spring of 2018. And then in the summer of 2018, I got a call from Zach Winokur asking me to choreograph the Black Clown, which I was immediately said yes, but I was scared out of my mind because I have never done anything like that before. So I feel really honored that you all trusted me and trusted my artistic voice for this. For those of you who don't know, The Black Clown is actually a poem by Langston Hughes that he wrote in 1931. And just a blanket brushstroke about what it's about. It's about being Black in America. And he wrote this in 1931. And sadly, much of this is still relevant today in 2020. So the clip that Mark is about to show you is a section from a song called Motherless Child, which is one of the most beautiful parts of the play, in my opinion. But just to set you up where we are, we've kind of gone through the timeline of America as it pertains to being a Black person. So we've gone from, looking at how we got to America, going through what it means to be a slave, and then going through the Emancipation Proclamation where slaves were freed, and then getting into Reconstruction where, Black Americans understand that we're free. But are we really free? There are no rights. I have no job. I have no home. I have no money. I'm really starting from not even zero, from -3. And so we're now coming to this place where the artists are just really letting all of that out, lamenting through this song of what our ancestors were dealing with at that time.
So let's dive in. I had it all queued up and then I closed the wrong window, but I think I'm back. I think you're good. This is why I'm the worst.
You're awesome. You're an awesome tech team.
Media expert you can imagine, but I think we're here. So we're starting sort of the beginning of this procession, which will lead us into this beautiful dance solo performed by Amber Pickens. Just get us there.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Oh, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long, long, long way from home. Long way home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home. A long way from Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from
You know, the potency of the talent in that group has always blown my mind. It's just so rich and thing.
And you can feel that on video. Sometimes video just cuts off 50% of what you feel. I mean, I have chills over here, and I've seen the show a gajillion times. You know, I was there when we created this, and it still brings me tears. And I think that's that speaks so much to why it's important as artists to bring our life experiences to the work. You know, I feel like it's rich because each and every one of those artists on stage has lived that moment. especially the moment where they bust out and they're just expressing and lamenting, and we go and sit down for service at church. Like it's ingrained in us. It's a part of our spirituality. It's part of our skin, our bones, our muscles, our everything. That I think that's why it's so potent to us as viewers, because it's their truth.
Yeah, also, I think this image in particular was so striking for me in the piece. I mean, in general, the piece just has so many sort of iconic images throughout. But this one in particular, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the conversation between you and Zach, because I think this sort of perspective, right, of Amber in this beautiful lyrical solo on the stage while we watch this procession come through the central aisle on the road is all encompassing and feels so simple, yet there is so much wrapped up in that sort of juxtaposition of those two visuals.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations, particularly around the creating and the presenting of a work like this. When Langston created this poem, of course, it's him expressing his experience as a Black man in America, right? And then also talking about finding joy in presenting my Blackness, but at the same time, I know I am being othered because of my Blackness. Why are we sharing this piece? Is it just so we can get applause at the end, or do we want our audience to, again, be accountable? So, the processional into the audience is to remind the audience that you are a part of this. You are, whether you like it or not, a part of where we are today, where we were yesterday. And this is not so you can just sit back and enjoy watching us. This is so that you can be along for this ride, which is why, we really unpacked Langston's whole reasoning for going from, talking about freedom. Oh, we're free. And then Black and a white world, it's like, how do we take the audience on a journey with us? So that processional is so that you can't if I see Lavon coming past me, if I'm in that front row of the second tier of the orchestra, you cannot deny, I can feel it right now. I feel what she feels. It's to crack open that empathetic side of yourself as well. Because it's very easy, if you don't break the fourth wall, to feel like, oh, I went and watched this really nice performance. But when it's right in front of you, it's accessible to touch. Wow. And then the perspective of watching Amber be on stage sort of inside of this framework, going through, sorry, not framework, but a frame, like a picture frame, going through and expressing this through dance while we watch the processional go by, and then bringing it back to the seated, solemn place of church and sanctuary. I think that speaks a lot to the Black experience. Inside there's rage, but then at the end of the day, there's that W. Du Bois idea of double consciousness.
I mean, that moment where the procession meets Amber on the stage and the whole, her body just rips open and the vocals just rip open. It's just so arresting.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Music.
Oh, yeah.
So great.
It's wild. So we have some questions that have been submitted in advance from our audience, which I want to get to. But we spent a lot of time today, Chanel, talking about where institutions sit right now in this time of COVID, in this time of racial reckoning, where your artistic practice sits. And we've had some deep conversations about the theater industry. And I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about both kind of what you're seeing in the theater industry and in the dance industry, and kind of what you think the future is for institutions, not necessarily for their survival, but their responsibility moving forward.
To be quite frank, I believe that the theater industries and the dance industry are starting to see what we as BIPOC artists have seen for a very long time. That, at the elite rungs of our industries, it's not reflective of the world that we live in, both as the artists that we see on stage telling the stories and the artists on the other side of the creative tables whose stories we're offering. That has been something that has been a very real truth of ours for longer than I've been alive. And, you know, 2020 has been a catch-22. You know, I think part of what we experienced with watching a man be murdered was the exact trigger that we needed to have some real uncomfortable conversations. And for me, as we continue to have these conversations about how we change or how we evolve, how we become more equitable and diverse, you know, I think it's important that we all stay the path and keep having conversations. You know, my ideology is that we stay proactive, not reactive, you know. So I'll say that. What I'm offering to as many people that will listen is that please don't underestimate the power of three things: access, opportunity, and representation. Please don't underestimate that. I can't tell you what it's like to be a young Black girl sitting in the audience of Cinderella and seeing Keke Palmer as the lead. You're like, I can be that. That is so powerful. It's powerful and it's real. You know, representation is real. Access. I am endeavoring to talk to anybody that will listen to possibly open our doors and find creative ways to get more people who don't have access to theater and dance into the theater to see theater and dance. You know, I'll use Hamilton as an example. I went to see Hamilton and In the Heights, and I felt so seen because it's rooted in my New York City roots. I was like, oh, yo, my friends on the block need to see this. Our life, you know, seeing spray paint on the storefronts and, you know, getting a gypsy cat, like that's our life. And to be able to come and see that is transformative. It's transformative. And the last is opportunity. You know, any industry that is attached to any sort of educational institution, I think it behooves us to go back and endeavor to look at the population of our students. Who are these 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds? Who are these 15-year-olds? Do they look like the future that we want to create for theater and dance? If they do not, we have work to do. What's the work that needs to be done? Okay, maybe they don't know where we are. Maybe we have to go to them. Maybe I have to do an audition at Boys and Girls High School in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, in the gym to find some potential dancers or young thespians. You know, maybe I have to do more work. Right? We have to get more creative and more diligent about creating the world that we say we want. It is not enough to slap a Band-Aid on at the top and just throw more BIPOC people in there. That's not actually getting to the issue, because those BIPOC people somehow got up through the pipeline by hook or crook and made it to the place where you could actually install them into a show. Let's talk about down here at the beginning of the pipeline. So access, opportunity, representation.
It's the perfect segue into what one of our questions is. We're thinking part of the answers. So we're going to say it, but I think you're already there. How do you think arts institutions can or should shift to better support BIPOC artists?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, I think it takes a real magnified examination of the practices that we've had in the past and things that we just took for granted. Yeah, we have this artist in residency program. We usually take people from this institution and stuff like that. And to have more people in the conversation to challenge what has been the norm. Say, okay, I know that's what we've been doing, but just from another perspective, I may not have had access to this program because of these reasons, you know? So yeah, I think that's a big one. Having more people be a part of the conversation, not just those who have sat in leadership positions that have been doing this thing for 20 years. It's like, you know, it might behoove us to invite some more people into the conversation. Maybe some more, maybe BIPOC artists who are not looking to be a part of the roster, but can lend some recommendations, can lend some ideas how we creatively engage with BIPOC artists and make them feel welcome. Because that's another thing. Do I feel welcome? Do I feel like my perspective is going to be taken seriously, or am I going to be written off as not something that is theater or dance worthy? You know, So I talk a lot about that with my friend Nigel, with, why maybe more BIPOC students don't feel like they can throw their name in the hat for certain institutions collegiately. And a lot of them will say, I don't think they're looking for me.
And how can you be, as an artist, expected to create your best work if those circumstances aren't available?
Yeah, available or welcomed or seen. I mean, there's so many ways that we're going to skin this cat.
Right.
It's like, okay, in order for them to feel welcome, they have to feel like they're seen and heard. Okay, in order to be seen and heard, then we have to find more artists that we're already bringing in. Like, there's so many angles to getting to this thing, and it's going to take time. But that's why it takes a nice, robust team of people who are trying to get to the same what, and we're working on the how together.
Yeah. And then we have another question. What is your process in creating a dance or a movement piece? Do you start with the music? Do you start with feeling, script, text?
My usual go-to is music. Music like spirals me. I used to be on the New York City subway with headphones in and just listening through songs, and a song will come on that inspires me instantly. And when I tell you, Mark, the piece just actualizes in my brain. That's how fast it happens. I can't remember what steps happened, but I saw the piece from start to finish in my head because that song did it for me. Now, other things are influencing me as I get older. Like, I just last month or a few months ago, I went to the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C., and walking by all of the sort of like self-made, like made on the back of an envelope and hung up on the wall protest materials and art. I was so inspired. I was like, I have to make work here. I don't have the song. I need to find a videographer, but something about standing in that spot I was just so inspired. Like, if it makes my tear ducts tingle, then that means it's a work that I'm supposed to do. So now I take my inspiration from a lot of places. Visual art is a big one. I've been reading more poetry now, things that like inspire me to respond to that physically. But usually it's music. Music does it for me all the time.
It's hard to believe that it's an hour. We've been talking for an hour. And I avoided so many off-ramps. There were so many other things we could have talked about, but I know we didn't have all the time in the world. Though I wish we did. Chanel, thank you so much for being here. This is so good.
Mark, you seriously are one of my favorite people. And I credit A.R.T. all the time for one, being my family, for one, seeing me, embracing me, bringing me in. I mean, I can't tell you how scared I was in 2018 when I was making The Black Clown, feeling like a legit imposter in the theater world. But you all just, honestly, I felt seen. And, I know there are tons of conversations and we are unpacking and doing the work together. But I have always felt welcomed and seen and embraced. So I love you and I love my entire A.R.T. family. And thank you for chatting with me this lunchtime.
Yeah, I mean, my love for you knows no bounds. And you're a deep part of the A.R.T. family and always have a home here. So I can only imagine what the next 2, 3, 4 projects are going to be here in Cambridge.
Oh yeah, we got to talk because I got.
We'll take that offline. We don't want any spoilers. Okay, thank you all for joining today. This has been a great conversation, and we will be back next week live with a great designer roundtable with Ricardo Hernandez, Mimi Leanne, and Scott Pask. So please tune in next week. Great. Thank you, Chanel.
Thank you, Mark. Bye.
Bye.